Hello, 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 and welcome to today's installment of Creator for Mother podcast. As usual, I have got an exciting guest for you. I have got the amazing Olawunmi Brigue, and she will tell you about herself in a second. But I always like to introduce, as we do on the show, I always like to introduce our guest, and she's the founder, CEO of a great platform. It's called the Abundant Woman, and it's a global e-learning platform dedicated to empowering the modern Christian woman to significantly transform her life, her home, and her world through simple and effective spiritual growth and mindset transformational practices. She's got a podcast, she's got coaching, she's got a few things through which she reaches. She trains thousands of people to disengage from limiting beliefs. I love this, limiting beliefs and faulty belief system, to think differently, behave differently, and live differently. How powerful is that? And I'm going to be speaking to Olawunmi today just about just transformation and how we get to birth our, marvelous sides that are all on the inside of us. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
Thank you so much, Ambra. It's an honor. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I always like my guests to introduce themselves. Beyond the script, I want you to tell me, who you are. What is the essence of you?
Well, as you said, my name is Olawunmi Brigue, and if you're asking about the essence of who you are, I like to say it this way: I'm a son of the Most High God,
Son,
and
love it.
that's my identity. That's the identity that I have before anything else. Before I'm female, before I'm a wife, a mother, a transformational life coach, whatever it is. And that is really where I live from, because sons have rights and privileges. So in terms of what I do, I'm a transformational life coach, and I also run, as you mentioned, a coaching business, an online coaching business. I'm a wife and I'm a mother. And the most important thing about my life is impact. I believe, everything I do, there's always a platform of impact at the back of my mind. Like there's always something you can do to leave a mark with someone, to leave somebody better than you met them. Yes. So that's pretty much summarizes to start with.
I love it. I love how you start there. I am the son, of the Most High God. I just think that's so powerful. And why is it important that we're able to start there as the basis of our identity as people? Because a lot of times, and I don't want to, a lot of times I'm struggling with how to say it. A lot of times people, it's hard for them to really connect with the truth. But it's sometimes it's but you don't connect with it. Why is it important to connect?
It's the source of our lives, and even if somebody says they're an atheist, which is probably as far as you can get away from God. There are people that will say they're agnostic. There might be a God, I don't know about it. There might be people that might say, okay, it's not Christianity, it's Buddhism or whatever. But the farthest you can go is if someone says, I'm an atheist. There's nothing like that. But the truth of the matter is, so where did you come from? Because if you say I came from my parents, your parents came from somewhere. If you keep tracing it, the first person must have come from somewhere. So you actually have no root. You have no root. Where did you come from? And it's like saying you're taking fish out of water. Without the water, how can fish actually exist? How can they function? So if you detach yourself from what gave birth to you, it's you can't function. At best, you do your best, but at the end of the day, you can't truly fulfill the purpose for which you were created. And so that is why so many people walk around with sort of distorted identities, and there's no meaning. And mind you, when I say function in the sense of who you were created to be, I'm not necessarily talking about the trappings of success, like become successful in your career or your work or even your family. I'm talking about that void. There's something inside you that will always cry, that always feel like there's something missing, because you have not really identified and acknowledged who you really are and who God made you to be. So it's the most basic thing in terms of how we live and how we approach life.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if you're not able to connect to to that source and that center and your why, essentially, you go through life feeling like there's something missing. So
There's
perhaps
something missing.
so
Absolutely.
for people who are listening to us who perhaps are feeling that way, they don't know why, they just don't feel connected. And I love the phrase that the trappings of success, because sometimes you can be successful in the worldly sense, but you still feel like there's something missing, isn't that?
Absolutely. And the truth is, there's a book called The Search for Significance, and this
I've
author,
read that.
you've read it.
Yeah, Robert
And I
McGee.
mean, the title, it's such a brilliant, it definitely has to be God breathed, because even the title captures everything. Everyone is looking for that significance. And if your significance is not rooted in the identity that your creator gives you, people try and find it in different things. And mind you, I'm not just talking about unbelievers or atheists or whatever. I'm talking about Christians as well, which is really my passion. My passion is towards Christians, because why be the son of a king and walk around as a pauper? It means you don't have access to your rights and privileges. You don't really know who you are. So even Christians, we walk around and we're trying to find our source of identity in different things, in relationships, in career success, in our kids, in the successes of our kids, etc. But at the end of the day, that void, there is no one that can really fill it except the one who created you and the love of God, essentially.
I love that, finding your identity in your kids, because a lot of people do, don't they? The fact that your kids, it's almost, for them, it evidences that they are something and they have contributed positively to the world.
Yeah.
If their children are seen as doing things that the society deems as successful. So I want to ask, this identity thing, I feel like it can be a lot elusive, because it's a word that a lot of people, you should know who you are.
Yes.
You should know who you are. You should know who you are. And some people say, I know who I am, but then, let's
do you really know who you are?
Yeah, let's paint a picture that helps people, that helps give clarity around this whole identity thing. What does somebody who know who they are look like versus somebody who doesn't? If we're able to look, paint it on this canvas, maybe it's easier.
I think the most authentic way that somebody who really knows who they are is that confidence in the love of God. Because when you're talking about, I know who I am, etc., I'm the righteousness of God, I'm God's child, or whatever it is, it's not really about, okay, I'm a Christian, I'm going to heaven. The real thing is the revelation of God's love. And that is all God is after. I mean, it is people that have maybe turned it into religion and are saying, you have to be this, you have to look at this, you have to talk like that, etc. God's not after any of that. He's after that intimacy, and intimacy is founded on love. So the person that knows who they are is the person that knows that no matter what I'm facing, no matter what I'm going through, the love of God is my foundation. I know everything's going to be okay. No matter, even when I succeed, I know that the source is the love of God. If everything is crumbling around me and I'm going through adversity, I don't turn and start cursing God and cursing everybody around me and saying, why is this happening? Why have you done this, etc. I mean, it is a matter of, okay, I know that I'm going through this, but on the other side of it, it's going to be wonderful because I know that the person who loves me has got my back. So it is about a revelation of God's love, a personal revelation of God. And it's not automatic, because I was a Christian for many years, very devoted in my pursuit of God, and I did not really understand that love or have the connection to that love.
I love it. When I teach on identity, I always talk about our identity as being in different layers, and the first layer, which is the most significant, I always say is the layer of our divinity, and that speaks to who we are. It's like it's like what you are caught out of, your divinity, the fact that you are caught out of a particular, like a tree is a tree. A tree cannot be a dog or a, you know, whatever, a cat. A tree is a tree. You see a big tree, you see a small tree, it is a tree. So it's understanding that this is who I am. Essentially, I am caught out of this particular tree. This is my divinity. This is my roots. You know, I am part of this creative force that allows me move on earth like a god. So I always try and help people contextualize it in that way, to say that no matter, on a good day, you are still this thing. On a bad day, you are still, you cannot change. That is who you are, and that's how you've been created. I think that brings a lot of light and revelation from that perspective. I want to just talk a little bit, because I see, and I was saying to you just before we started this interview about how I just absolutely love your heart. I see your heart for women, particularly in everything that you do. I see just how passionate you are. I see, you know, the fact that you've got, you know, your platform, the Super Abundant Woman. You've got a membership, you've got coaching, you've got all of this just to empower. I want to ask, like, is this who you've always been? Like, who were you as a child? Like, I always like us to kind of dial back a little bit. Like, who were you as a child? How was childhood like for you? How have you become this person?
I think, I mean, you know, borrowing from possibly the self-help world, to say that success leaves clues. In other words, who's the purpose, or maybe purpose is a heavy word, but who somebody would eventually, maybe what they'll be known for in the future, you can usually start to observe it from when they're a child. And for me, I mean, the whole I think, you know, not to sound a little bit off, but I think I was born a leader, in the sense that I'm the last child. I'm the last child of my family, and
how many kids
are way older, so I'm the one that they probably were not expecting.
How many kids?
There's 5 of us. And my immediate older brother is 6 years older than I am. So they weren't planning. Yeah, you know, the others are really close in age, and this one just popped up, and they're like, okay, let's see what happens. Being the youngest, going through school, I was usually either the youngest or second youngest in my class. But I'll give you an example. For example, I started secondary school, and I went to boarding school, grew up, you know, born and raised in Nigeria. Went to boarding school when I was 10, or just about to turn 10 or something like that. We were even late. I had a late start, so everyone had settled in by the time I arrived. And I remember as tiny little kids, all of us, you know, petrified, being shipped off to boarding school. And it was one of the senior prefects or something, one of the older kids walked in, and they said, oh, we've been, a bunch of them walked in, and they said, we've been asked to come and pick the class captain for this class. We're going around appointing class captains for the whole of the DSS1, the first year of secondary school. And I'm literally new. I just got to school. I didn't know anybody. This was the first period of my first day in boarding school, having never been away from home. And I was sitting in a corner thinking, I just want to go home. Where's my mom? And literally this, I still remember her. Of course, I don't remember her name, but I still remember exactly what she looks like. She walks over to me and she asked me what my name was. And I told her what my name was. And she said, you are going to be class captain. And I'm like, what?
Why you?
I'm like, what? and literally that was how I became class. I mean, I can count over and over again how things like that have happened to me all my life. And for me, it was looking back, at university, almost the same thing. So looking back, I've always been the kind of person that for some reason, even if I'm at the back, I'm always handpicked to come forward. And it's not just for show, it is because for some reason, there's something inside me that helps people see who they are, if that makes sense, and to help them bring out whatever it is that is inside them, and to rally people for a common cause. And so that is, it's always been there. Of course, I could not articulate it the way I'm doing it now, not even while I was at university. I thought, okay, if I'm being called to work in this fellowship at university, of course I'm going to serve, etc. But looking back, it is just something inside me that when it comes to people, and I see people everywhere, not just Christians, I see people as God's creation. And there's something important that God has put inside that person that needs to arise and shine. For a simple reason. I mean, if you go and read the whole of Isaiah 60, the reason why you arise and shine is because it says that darkness surrounds the whole earth. And when you arise and shine, what happens? Kings will come. It says nations will come to your light. So you arise and shine not so that you can bask in your own glory. You arise and shine in order to pull other people from the darkness that they are in. So for me, it's almost like starting a chain reaction. I look at one person and I feel like there's much more inside you. There's more you can do. God is calling you higher. You can go, you can be CEO of that company while raising amazing children. You don't have to settle. And as they do that, other people see them and think, that's possible. I can do it too. And that's how the chain reaction starts. So that is who I am. That's who I've always been, even as a child. Of course, as a child, I was probably bossier than I am now. Boss everybody around and make them do what I want.
You've learned to do it with restraint now. You've learned to do it with a little bit more wisdom. I absolutely love it. I love it. So I love how you say that, and I think the same. Again, this will probably be another thing you and I have in common. Similar to me, I have always been the person who will always have a word for somebody. Some of my earliest memories include, just encouraging, people around me, including my mom, saying, don't worry, it'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. I've just always had a knowing in my spirit that everything will be fine at a very, very young age. I can hear an echo. Can you hear it?
No.
From a very, very young age. It's gone now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very annoying. It was very annoying. Yeah, I've always had that. So I want to talk about the transition then into more specifically women, because I know the amazing work that you're doing with SOAR, which is the Super Abundant Woman. How did you recognize just that calling specifically for women?
I would say, again, unplanned. So while I was at university, and so two things in terms of the service that I got in the church or fellowship that I got involved in when I was at university, and then how my own life also took shape from that point on. So while I was at university, originally got born again when I was, I think, 13 or 12, thereabout. But then no guidance, because nobody else in my family was born again. I didn't really have any kind of guidance, so it just sort of cooled off until age 16 or thereabout. So when I went to university, I joined a fellowship and very active in there. And as part of that, I was ordained to start a women's fellowship. Like a women's arm of the fellowship, like a women's ministry, to preach to the girls, because I went to University of Lagos to preach to the girls on campus, get people born again, pray for them, teach them, help them become grounded in the faith, etc., and to be successful in life. For us at the time was obviously your academics and so on. So that was sort of what started my own interest in terms of women, and there was a natural flow after that. But at the tail end of that, as I was just as I finished university, and this is, if you remember, I said, I had walked with God by this point, fervently, vividly, served with every fiber of my being for years. But just after I left university, I got pregnant.
Mm.
Yeah, I got pregnant as a single lady. Just finished university very young, early 20s. And of course, if there's anything that could possibly be as
Probably
been
that's a pregnant single
single, just finished.
church
Yeah,
church.
pastor in, you got it. Yeah, exactly. Everybody called you Pastor.
Everybody's tongue is wagging at
Yeah.
this point. I knew it. Oh wow, this is
So,
interesting.
and
Okay.
for me, I would honestly, even though I had walked with God for a while, personally, I believe that was really where my own Christianity began, because that was, it is in your brokenness that you can
I love
truly,
it.
truly know God. I mean, if when we're full of ourselves, you can sort of give a nod to God, but it is really broken people that can open themselves up and let the love of God come in. So when I obviously went through that, and I couldn't possibly get into that because it would take the whole. But going through that experience and seeing how I was able to come out of it on the other side. So moved to the United Kingdom just before I had my baby, and as someone who's always been very driven, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to do well in my career. I wanted to be top of my industry. I didn't want to settle. But here I was, literally just moved to the United Kingdom, had a baby, and my daughter was about 2.5 months when I started my career. And I'm thinking, I have this baby and I'm starting a career. What's going to give? And obviously, it was at that point that I began to experience the agitation that a lot of us as women go through, where you start to feel being pulled in different directions, and the temptation to settle becomes very strong. Like, oh, I really want to do well in my career, I really want to do this, but I have a child. And you could pull back and say, do you know what, I'll try and do this one. Maybe this one will suffer. Maybe I'll put this on hold and whatever it is. And God began to teach me that, no, you can have it all. You definitely can have it all. And there are ways, through wisdom, you can have it all. So when I realized that something that, I had learned and had actually begun to practice very well, so many people were struggling with it. So many women were struggling with it in terms of their mental health, in terms of feeling that they can't cope, in terms of their spiritual life, basically just going down the toilet because everything else has squeezed out that relationship and the time that they dedicate normally to God. And them feeling like, oh, for example, I have kids, but how am I supposed to, whatever. So the passion for me is like, no, don't, you don't have to stop. You can be CEO and a super mom and all these things, not because you're going to do everything, but because wisdom and grace and strength has a way of effortlessly helping you. Because the main reason is when you're able to thrive like that, then you become a showcase. People start to ask questions like, how are you doing it? Which is literally what happened to me in my own career. Everybody knew that I had a child, and I wasn't going to kill myself at work and stay till 9 p.m. like some people were doing, because I had to get back to my child. But in terms of the results always came out better than the people that were putting in 100 hours. Like, how are you doing it? And this is the point of conversation, for you to be able to preach Christ, because you have the results or the evidence to back it up, to say there's a supernatural power that is also working. There's wisdom that is helping me to achieve these things, that I don't need to toil, because toil, I've always believed, is a curse. And we have been redeemed from toil as a curse. So
toil and hustle as well.
Hustle, yes.
I saw that in your bio. Hustle free. Let's talk about that. Hustling. Why people think it's a good idea to hustle, and why it's not.
First of all, I mean, we have to understand the meaning of some of the words that we use. If you look up the word hustle, it is not. There's nothing positive about it. It's excessive hard work. It is back-breaking hard work. And I know that some people use it more loosely, like it means, to keep going after what you want, etc. I mean, fine. But if we take it in the actual context of the word, which is do everything and put everything in and toil and toil and toil, then if you achieve any measure of success by hustling or by toiling, there's no mystery to your success. It's because you put in 50 hours and 100 hours, and you barely have time for your kids, and your home is your marriage is almost a wreck because you're snapping at everybody, you're stressed, etc. But look at me, I'm doing fantastically well. I just got another promotion at work. There's no mystery to your success. We can see how you're doing it, and it's not really a testimony or a testament to any of that. The real mystery is, yes, I'm being diligent, which is what the Bible teaches us, because the Bible does not encourage laziness, which is the other extreme. We're being diligent. Diligence means that you're showing up to do what is required of you, and you're doing it with excellence at every point. Yes, I'm being diligent, but at the same time, I understand that the source of my actual prosperity is the grace of God that sits upon my own natural investments in what I'm doing. Because if I don't trust in that grace, and the grace is literally an idea comes to you, you go and implement that idea, and boom, results that you could not have achieved through toil, they come to you, and people are like, what's going on? So hustle actually, it reduces the quality of life. Hustle, causes people to become closed and so internally focused and so insular, because you're about, I just need to give more. At a point, you're going to run out of stuff to give. And because that happens and you become so stressed out, then you're like, after everything that I put in, and it becomes easy for you to start maybe yielding to unsavory things just to keep getting that result.
So good. So good. Okay, so what I would like for us to do now is literally give a gift, deliver some people who are listening, because I hear people listening, and we've said all the things that they shouldn't do, all the things that are available for them somehow. But what does it really take for a woman to transform her life? Like, what is that? What does it mean? Somebody's listening to us and they're just like, gosh, I don't like the way my life is right now. What is that? What does it take? I mean, obviously we've got 10 minutes, so this isn't a course or anything, but I mean, how can we condense it to say, what are some things that people should be doing to get them to the place of, from the place of, what, I don't really like the content, the context, the landscape of where I currently am, to get to the place of, what, I can start to feel, because it's all progressive, isn't it? The destination isn't a place, it's a journey. So to get to the place where they kind of start to feel like, what, this is heading towards the abundant life that God promised me.
That's a loaded question, and
whichever part you can take,
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Probably the best way for me to answer that is to go back to my own story. So I mentioned that finished university, and in between finishing school and going to get a job, etc., found out that I was pregnant, and that was probably the lowest point of my life at that stage. And everything that had looked like solid ground was now sinking sand. The identity that I had held on to, which was not necessarily rooted in God, to some degree was, but not firmly rooted in God, was shaken. And at that point in time, I'll share one of the first things that you must do if you find yourself in a situation that you look around and you think, I don't want to be here. The first thing that you must do is accept 100% responsibility. And that's hard to do. So I could have sat down, in my parents' home back then, my parents' house back then, in my room, and thought, look at this person, look at what they've done to me, how dare they, etc. I hate this person. God, how could you, how much have I served you that you allow this to happen to me, etc., etc. Before I became serious with you, I was a virgin, or it's after I now started serving you. I could have literally gone,
Down
through
the
all of
road to
that.
self-pity. Yeah.
But one of the first things that the Holy Spirit began to teach me is you do not attract in life what you want or don't want. You attract who you are. So the reason why you are in this situation is because there's an image that is inside you, and you've basically just replicated it in your experience. So you have to first of all begin to ask questions like, what is inside me that has brought me to this point? Accept 100% responsibility, because until you do, if I say, oh, it's because somebody did this to me, then I've given them the power. I've given them the power. If somebody is listening and they say, oh, but I want to progress in my career, they're not promoting me because I'm Black or I'm a woman. I mean, you have given away your power, because you're saying it is completely dependent on something that is external to you. Now, the moment you do that, that's the end of the discussion. It's done.
And isn't it also, just to add on to that point, isn't it also the fact that some of the wounds and some of the things that we experience in life are essentially the things that we've been created with a cure for?
100%. 100%, because for me, the image, didn't just jump on me. It's as a result of traumatic experiences, the things that we have observed, particularly as children. Those are the entry points. Right? If you read throughout the Bible, Satan always tries to go for the person that's going to become something when they're a child. The Bible is a mirror of what's still happening today. So he goes for us. I mean, he's not going to raise a Herod, God forbid, that's going to now proclaim, kill all the children. But he's going to use your parents' words, because death and life are in the power of the tongue. So you probably are a little bit slow in getting what your mom asked you to go and get, and say, see how she's walking, what, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you're whatever it is, look at you, all those kind of things. These are poisonous words that have been introduced, things like divorce, things, whatever, traumatic. And I was 10, and I went through a traumatic experience, and I observed, and from that point on, I was scarred. And from that age 10 up until the point around age 20, early 20s, where I became pregnant, I carried that scar, that wound. I didn't know what to do with it. I was on fire for God. I was doing everything I could to run away from this fear that I was going to have a child outside of wedlock. I was afraid.
Wow.
I was
afraid. So the thing that you feared the most.
Absolutely. Wow. Because I had actually my older sister, and one that I'm closest to, like I said, she was much older. Well, so when I was 9 or thereabouts, she got pregnant and she wasn't married. I think she was about 19. And way back then, I don't know what it's like now, but they find out you're pregnant. It was, and me as a little child, like a little child, my nose pressed up against the window in a candy store, watching. It was my perspective, but I was like, see what's happening here. Never, ever. And it was so traumatic for me that I mean, going through secondary school, even when I had a boyfriend, etc., I was like, if you listen, the moment you mention that word. But no matter how much you run away externally, no matter how much you struggle to maybe go towards something that you desire or run away from something that you don't desire, if that image is imprinted in your heart, it will find expression. And that is where 100% responsibility actually comes in. Because what essentially happened was I had that strong fear, the traumatic experience had branded my heart with an image. Even though I didn't want it, it was there. And of course, what's going to happen? I'm going to gravitate towards somebody that probably has the same, and we're going to find each other. So if someone says, oh, I end up in this kind of relationship, you have to first of all take responsibility. Your eyes were open when you married this person, or when you decide to say yes to this person, or when you took that job. You say, oh, but I didn't know they hid it from me somehow. So if you don't accept that response, and this is hard to do, but it is also so liberating.
It is.
Because
you attract. Yeah, I was just going to say, you attract what is in your heart, whether you want it or you don't want it. The mind doesn't know the difference, essentially.
Exactly. So 100% responsibility. And I sat down and I said, this is entirely on me. Okay, God, now I understand. Let's fix this. Let's move forward. And obviously it works exactly the same way with prosperity. And God began to help me rewrite the images that were in my heart. And as a result of that, I was able, miraculous transformation. My life was miraculously transformed. Literally within a year, you could not reconcile the person that was sitting in that room that day in Lagos, Nigeria, and a year later who I had become. So anyone that's there listening, you have to first of all say, what exactly have I believed that has led me to this point? What are the choices and the decisions that I made that have led me to this point? And then you begin from there. You begin from there by painting a picture, clearly painting a picture of where you want to go, and what's going to get me there. Who is this new person that's going to help me get to this new relationship or this new job that I want or whatever it is? How am I going to become the person that will effortlessly attract what I want?
I love it, absolutely. And I know the answer to this, but I think it's important that we emphasize. A lot of people feel like, I can do it on my own. Once I know where I want to get to, I can kind of navigate there on my own, and people get lost. They get lost in the maze of life, and in this, they take longer. So even if they get there, it just takes them longer. What would you say is the importance of having someone guide you, coach you, show you the way? Why is it important for people to come through on platforms like you have, which is the Super Abundant? I've got a platform, I've got the More Collective as well, for people who want to be more, women who want to be more. So why is it important to have platforms like this, and why is it important for people to, let people guide them?
Probably the most important reason is because you have blind spots. What you know probably got you here, but what you don't know cannot get you there. Everybody has blind spots. That is why God did not create any one of us to function as an island. So you need people. For me, I'll give you the example. As I began my own process of transformation from a single pregnant out of wedlock young girl, disastrously failed relationship, etc. I was on my own with a baby on the way, etc. And I thought I was like, okay, I'm going to start praying. This is what I want. I'm going to start, praying to God and declaring, etc. But nothing for months. Nothing was happening, simply because, what I had, the level of wisdom or knowledge that I was operating at was not going to get me into the next level. And I needed something. But here's the dilemma. Because I was pregnant, I had hidden myself away. As a young unmarried woman in Lagos, Nigeria, or I don't know, you don't start brandishing your big belly around and etc. So I had cut myself off from almost everyone, because it was a shameful thing. So how was I going to get to this next level? But do you know, the ways of God are so amazing. God knew that there was something I needed to know. Somebody needed to teach me something about how to move forward. And it was actually a book, right? Somebody just randomly showed up one day and said, I don't know why, I think I'm supposed to give you this book. Somebody told me to give you this book. Random. I did not chase after the book, but I had been praying, God, show me, what do I need to do, etc. And this book, as soon as I opened the book and I started to read it, it was exactly what I needed to do. It was a mind shift that I needed. So even though the person that wrote the book was not physically there, God still used a human being to help me identify my blind spot and told me what to do to fix that blind spot. So to think that I can do it alone, it's impossible to do it alone.
We're dying to know the name of the book, by the way.
So yeah, I mentioned the book, and I recommend it all the time. It's called Faith and Confession by Charles Capps, and it's an old time book. I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago, and Charles Capps, I believe, has gone home to be with the Lord now. So it's, I think, around the time of Kenneth Hagin, etc. So it's, I don't know if it's as relevant to listeners today as it was as relevant to me at that time. But it basically revolutionized my life because it changed the way that I prayed. I'd been asking God, God, do this, God, do this. And he basically essentially showed how God has done all these things. Take the promise, begin to declare it. As you declare it, you are renewing your mind. And as you renew your mind, what happens is God can then get his power to come work for you because you have your desire. But a lot of times our desires are at odds with our belief systems. So people are only going based on, but this is what I want, but your own heart is rejecting what you want. So until your heart is in alignment with your desire, the power of God cannot work on your behalf. So when I read that and I took the word and I made confessions out of the word, scriptures God gave me, and I began to declare those things, my image, the faulty image that God made to where I was, that image began to change to the point that I believed anything was possible. And because of that, I saw miracles happen before my eyes, as in dramatic miracles literally play out before my eyes because my image changed.
I love it. I love it. So powerful. Thank you so much. Please tell us about SOAR. Tell us about how my people can find you. Tell about what you do.
Yes, so SOAR is a spiritual and personal development platform, and we cater for women, for Christian women who basically want it all. So you know that you have this drive, this ambition to be, for example, top 1% in your career, an industry leader. At the same time, you want to be in a beautiful marriage and have amazing kids that are excellently impacting their own world, not just doing well at school. It's more than that. And at the same time, you're also reaching out to people and living out your purpose. In order to do that, there's certain things you need to know, and there's certain things spiritually that you need to keep connecting to. So that's what we do in SOAR, spiritual and personal development. The resources, the coaching that you need to make that happen, the community you need to make that happen, we provide all of that as a membership that you can plug into. So yeah, and our members, I mean, when people come to us as pretty much at the stage of life where they would have maybe been very fervent in their relationship with God at some point, and then life happens, and then that spiritual connection gets squeezed out, and they don't know how to find their way back to that, consistent time of prayer, of worship, receiving wisdom from God. And basically we help them get back on track with that, and also to expand their minds and to begin to work on their mindset so that they can become everything God has called them to be. So that's what SOAR is.
Love it. So good. So good. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been such an insightful conversation, and I know that people have been transformed just by listening to it. I would like for you to close us out. Just speak to a woman who is listening. Just talk to her about the responsibility of mining her more. And ensuring that it reaches out to all the people that she reaches out to all the people that she's been sent to. I would like for you to just speak directly to one woman who is listening, and speak to her about her more.
If I reference Isaiah 60, it says, "Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you." So the reason why you can arise and shine is because there's a source. But when we become disconnected from that source, obviously the light begins to dim. And when the light dims, our impacts, everything else. So the most important thing for anyone that is looking for more is you have to first of all get yourself to more in terms of your relationship with God. You have to connect at a deeper level. Make sure that your prayer life is going solid. And I'm not just talking about religion. I'm not talking about maybe joining online prayers and there's no personal relationship. I'm talking about intimacy. It is from the place of intimacy that wisdom comes, that assurance comes, that the feeling of I'm loved and I can conquer anything, strength, all of that comes out of your intimacy with God. So that's why I always ask people to start from. Rebuild your intimacy with the Holy Spirit. Find the help you need from wherever. For example, So is a platform that helps you do that, and get that done. Because once you enter into that flow, the more that you desire, much more will come, all right, as a result of that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. You've heard it. Olawunmi Brigue, thank you so much for being here with us. And it's been such a great episode. God bless you, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Oh.